It was just moments ago, Vice President Kamala Harris picked up the formal endorsement of former President Barack Obama and Michelle Obama as well. Here is the brand new video.
Kamala.
Hello. Hi.
Hey there.
Oh, hi. You're both together. Oh, it's good to hear you both.
I can't have this phone call without saying to my girl Kamala, I am proud of you. This is going to be historic.
We called to say Michelle and I couldn't be prouder to endorse you and to do everything we can to get you through this election and into the Oval Office.
Oh, my goodness. Michelle, Barack, this means so much to me. I am looking forward to doing this with the two of you, Doug and I both, and getting out there, being on the road. But most of all, I just want to tell you the words you have spoken and the friendship that you have given over all these years mean more than I can express. So thank you both. It means so much. And we're going to have some fun with this too, aren't we?
Now, that's interesting. That's interesting because Trump has been making statements that kind of conflict. You know, on one hand, he didn't want to move forward until he got the endorsement of the Obamas, right? Until Kamala got the endorsement of the Obamas. I believe that's what he says. I'm going to look that up. But then on the flip side, when he gets the endorsements, what do you think happened after that? Did he proceed as he implied he would proceed? No, I believe the man ducked out of whatever debates were set up. And when he mentioned the Obamas before, it was in connection to debating Kamala Harris. But let me look that up. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I'm going to look that up. Let's hear some more.
So this is not unexpected, but could be a bit awkward for Donald Trump this morning. Overnight, his campaign said it would not commit to debating Harris, in part because she had not been endorsed by Obama. Well, now she has. With us now, CNN senior White House correspondent.
Exactly. What do y'all think about that? I mean, you know, Trump reminds me of, you know, a situation where you just cannot win. So an average person, right, who is going in all by themselves, one-on-one, and there's no one else really to document what goes on, you can't really win with Trump. And this time it was documented, so the news covered it, right? But think about how many stories the news didn't really cover. And, you know, but in any case, it's right in your face. Trump said that he wouldn't commit to debating until he first hears about an endorsement from the Obamas. And then he made it a big story about, oh, what's going on with the Democratic campaign? You know, are they trying to oust Biden secretly so that Kamala, is there a coup d'etat? Is there all of these things, anything else except the rules and regular business, everyday business going on? And, you know, Trump makes this up in his mind and the media takes the story and runs with it. But what about this story of Trump just changing his mind? Kamala gets the endorsement. Suddenly he don't want to debate. What if the truth was really this? What if the truth is Trump has been scared of Harris the entire time and gives off the bravado like he's not scared. He's a tough guy all the time, no matter what. Tough, bullet tough. You know, everything tough. The Teflon president, Donald Trump, right? He gives off this thing like he's tough. But what if in reality, his worst nightmare is a woman, right? Maybe even a black woman. I don't know if that even cuts into his views a little bit. I mean, if he was a racist, he would definitely hate losing an election to a black person. And think about this. He really, really, really hated Obama. I'm not talking about hated him like Reagan. You know, a lot of people hate Reagan. A lot of liberals hated Reagan. A lot of people hated Reagan. Reagan was an actor. Then he became a governor, I believe, right? Yeah, governor. And then he went on to become the president. But then CIA Contra scandal came in. You know, all types of stuff came in with Reagan. A lot of people hate Reagan. Kamala Harris doesn't have a record like Reagan. But yet Trump seems to or Obama didn't either for that matter. But Trump seems to have hated him. Like he hated him like an obsessed sociopath hates. He hated Obama. He made up a story. Can you imagine this? This goes on YouTube every day too. You know, you meet people, you don't know them, all of a sudden they hate you. They got videos about you. They're claiming you don't even come from the US. You know, that's what they did with Obama. So, do you think that Trump really really dislikes Kamala Harris because she's not white? I mean, do you think his worst fear was being shown that he's really a buffoon by someone who's not white? And double down on that, do you think his worst fear is it that it's also a woman that can show him to be a buffoon? Do you think that's his worst fear? Because if that was his worst fear, I could see why he would duck. That's
Kayla
all.
Tausche. Kayla, again, not unexpected, but kind of shows this tight rollout that Harris, not unexpected, but
Michelle, Brock, this means so much to me. I'm looking forward to doing this with the two of you, Doug and I both, and getting out there, being on the road. But most of all, I just want to tell you the words you have spoken and the friendship that you have given over all these years.
Yeah, Pumpkin, Donnie, do y'all think that Trump, Teflon Trump, is afraid intellectually of Kamala Harris? Do you think his worst fear is actually a debate with Kamala Harris? Do you think he fears her for any reason? Let me know.
Mean more than I can express. So thank you both. It means so much, and we're gonna have some fun with this too, aren't we?
So this is not unexpected, but could be a bit awkward for Donald Trump this morning. Overnight, his campaign said it would not commit to debating Harris, in part because she had not been endorsed by Obama. Well, now she has. With us now, CNN senior White House correspondent Kayla Tausche. Kayla, again, not unexpected, but kind of shows this tight rollout that Harris has had over the last this is what, the 6th day?
Yes, John, highly choreographed, even though all of this came together in the 11th hour over just the last week. This was a critical piece for Vice President Harris to get the endorsement from a party leader who still has influential sway across the entirety of the Democratic Party. It shouldn't be understated the fact that this came on several days after her candidacy became official, but also after the official process to clinch those delegates came through. Sources have said that the Obamas didn't want to be seen as anointing Vice President Harris or seen as part of a coronation, in the words of one, choosing instead to wait until after some of those processes have played out. But certainly it is going to provide quite a bit more momentum for a campaign that has already seen quite a bit of that. $126 million raised as of Tuesday. The campaign has not provided an updated number, even though several days have followed that. And even though several major organizing calls have taken place, including one last night with white women, where 164,000 women participated in that. And Harris is going to be trying to use that momentum across the battlegrounds.
Hold up. Did she say 154? Whoa. A fundraising telephone call? Is that what she just said? Hold on. I'm sorry.
In that. And Harris is going to be trying to use that momentum across the battlegrounds number, even though several days of those processes have played out. But certainly it is going to provide quite a bit more momentum for a campaign that has already seen quite a bit of that. $126 million raised as of Tuesday. The campaign has not provided an updated number, even though several days have followed that. And even though several major organizing calls have taken place, including one last night with white women, where
this is totally separate. So that 100 and something million was raised on telephone calls. I believe it's black men and black women separately. And now they're saying there was 120,000. So that's about 90,000, if I believe, and now 120,000 more.
164,000 women participated in that.
164,000. This is 200 150 people volunteering, I believe, on the telephones, raising money, and they don't know the results of that. I guess it's come out. Let's play. I'm
And
sorry.
Harris is going to be trying to use that momentum across the battlegrounds in the coming days. The campaign saying that just today it will be holding events in Michigan, North Carolina, Georgia, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, following on dozens of events taking place across other battleground states leading up to this point. Of course, the calendar is very crunched at this point. There are a lot of deadlines coming up in August alone. We have learned from sources that Vice President Harris and her team are expected to lock in a running mate by August 7th. That would be a process that would be just about 2 weeks from start to finish. August 1st is the earliest date that the Rules Committee has decided that early voting could begin. And then, of course, there is the convention, the 19th through the 22nd, less than a month away at this point. So certainly there is a lot to do in just the next few weeks, guys.
Yeah, not a lot of real estate left on that calendar. Kayla Tausche, great to have you on in the mornings. Thanks so much for being with us. Appreciate it. With us now, CNN political commentator Kristen Soltis Anderson and Democratic strategist Matt Bennett. Matt, the facts of this endorsement aside, this sort of caps this week, this remarkable now 6 days of a pretty tight rollout. How do you see it having played out?
I mean, there's no way it could have gone better. It was very clear that the vice president's team was ready. They didn't know if the president would step aside. They had no idea, and they didn't know when it would come. But the moment that it came, they just sprang into action, and they rolled it out in unbelievably perfect way. They made all the calls they needed.
And you know what? That's essentially the Democratic Party of these days. You know, the last 20 years has been like a rollout party, a party that when they want to get things done, they're really getting things done on the grassroots level. Also, very organized, very, very organized, if you want to talk about political parties in general. So it is, you know, in a two-party system, it is a little strange, you know, and maybe has some problems when there's always one or the other party, you know, only two parties to choose from. But, you know, having said that, the Democratic Party is a real functioning political party, you know, meaning from the grassroots on up. You know, they have a communication line, organization line, you know, it's organized. The Republican Party is in complete, utter disarray for the last decade, you know, slowly, but particularly the last decade since Trump has been around. The party itself, the infrastructure has been gutted. So it doesn't even work like a political party. It works more like a business. The business deals, the big money people are getting things done. They're communicating. But with the grassroots messaging to the people, and also having volunteers like that that can spring into action, the Republican Party is just not that type of party.
They rounded up the endorsements they needed. They kind of closed off the field to others. And then they put her out on the road and captured this incredible wave of momentum that followed this, you know, sigh of relief that the party was giving, that we now have a nominee that seems really capable.
You know what? I'm sorry, but it's also telling. It's also telling the fact that the Republican Party is you know, pretty much weakened in the guts, you know, in the middle, in the center, and in the grassroots part of it. It's very, very weak. Outside of messaging, cheap messaging over the television, you know, it's pretty weak. But it goes to show you, like, when you listen to their rhetoric, they will have you think that the Democratic Party is behind everything. They're the party that's not for the people. The Democratic Party is not for the middle class. They're not for the people. They're not for the poor. No, they're misusing people, and they're behind the curtain also, because all they have is the big wigs. That's what the Republican messaging says, right? But in reality, that sounds a lot like the Republican Party in reality, how it's actually built. And proof is evident because, again, Kamala Harris can get 150,000 non people of color out. She can get 80,000 non-people or black people out specifically. She can get others also out very fast on the fundraising. Also, that is the grassroots, sharing your message, having a way to receive and give, to interact with people. So I hope folks don't go for the okey doke. They're organized, the Democrats.
Prosecuting the case against Trump. And I think what you're finding is that the Trump team is definitely not ready. I mean, they have these ridiculous lawsuits. They're now saying they're not going to debate her. They're on their heels in defense.
That is another thing right there. The lawsuits. How do you all think that a political candidate should be using the money that he raises on lawsuits? Let me find out. Let me just fact check that real quick. I'm sorry. I have to fact check that because it's quite possible that, let me see here. Is this a new one? Yeah, boom. Let me open this up. 2 seconds, y'all. I need to check something out here. Let me see. Does Donald Trump use funds for his on judicial criminal or civil? Let me see something. I hope I asked that correct. Now, can y'all see this? Let me open it up and make it bigger. I'm sorry. Look. Okay, it's giving back this result.
Donald Trump has indeed used funds raised for his election campaign to cover legal expenses related to his judicial problems, both criminal and civil. This practice, while controversial, is generally legal under Federal Election Commission (FEC) rules, as long as the expenses are related to activities that could affect his candidacy or duties as a candidate. Trump's Political Action Committee, PAC, Save America, has been reported to have spent millions of dollars on legal fees. These expenditures cover a wide range of legal issues, including those arising from investigations into his business practices, his conduct while in office, and other related matters. This includes payments to law firms and lawyers defending him in various criminal and civil cases. It's important to note that while using campaign funds for legal defense is permissible, the practice has drawn scrutiny and criticism, especially given the scale of Trump's legal challenges and the amount of money involved.
And Project 2025, so things have gone really well so far.
We're going to get to the debate thing in just a moment, but Kristen, first to you, with the...
Yeah, so Trump does use apparently a lot of money. I don't know what percentage is normal for a political candidate to use, but apparently there's no doubt Trump, the answer is yes, he's used his some of that money at least to defend from criminal and civil cases, I believe. Let's see.
Obamas, is there anything unique politically about their endorsement? I don't think this was unexpected, but does this endorsement carry something special that others have not?
Well, I think, one, it was smart to actually delay it a few days. There was a little bit of online chatter. Why hasn't Obama endorsed? Why hasn't Obama endorsed? It's smart because it takes the story and it makes yet another day. It gets to stand on its own as a story. However, I do think that if Democrats think that they are going to recreate the Obama coalition this year, that is a bit of a big dream, but seems unlikely to me. Remember, Barack Obama won in part by being able to pull together this incredible coalition that included states like Iowa. Iowa voted for Barack Obama twice. And I'm not encouraging anyone to go bet a bunch of money, but I wouldn't go to Vegas right now and put a bunch of money on Kamala Harris winning Iowa in 2024. So, for some of these politicians like Barack Obama, who's very talented, the question is, how much does his coalition, can it be rebuilt in new, much more polarized times? And count me a little bit skeptical of that.
So Matt brought up the debates, and Kristen, I want to give this question to you because this has been such an unprecedented week. I've been surprised by a lot of things, big and small. One of the small things I've been surprised by is how much Republicans have focused on the process in the Democratic Party. And the debate's just one aspect of it. We have this release from the Trump campaign overnight backing off the debates, at least for now, that says given the continued political chaos surrounding Cricket Joe Biden and the Democratic Party, the debates cannot be finalized until Democrats formally decide on their nominee. They go on to say there's a strong sense by many in the party, namely Barack Hussein Obama, and then it goes on, ... They're not going to commit to debates just yet. Of course, Obama then this morning goes out and endorses. But Kristen, explain, what does Trump get out of this? Do they get something out of this process argument?
Well, it is not wrong to underscore how extremely unprecedented this is. I mean, Democratic voters did not get the opportunity to really have a meaningful primary. At the same time, though, the politics of this, I assume that what they're trying to do is divide a Democratic coalition that right now does not seem interested in being divided. Yeah. Democrats are pretty united around Harris. This week has been, again, very unprecedented in the extent to which they've closed ranks. I do think that Republicans would be wise to have a message that's not about process, but is more about policy, to focus their message more on voters' discontentment with the economy, with immigration, with crime, with these issues where voters in polls that I see day in and day out tend to trust Republicans much more than Democrats. The Trump campaign would be much smarter to keep the focus on that versus trying to fight these process wars.
So, Matt, on that front, one of the things that we have begun to hear are these attacks on Vice President Harris as a liberal. Tom Cotton started it here, calling her a San Francisco liberal like 5 times in 7 minutes. And this morning.
And the latest one, I guess, is the diversity hire, right? It's not just the liberal and this type of thing, but she herself is being accused as being a diversity hire. I'm sure most people can easily look up, the background of all the presidents, and see that a diversity hire, it's only 2. If you add up all the presidents, how many of them do you think, what percentage do you think would come back as anything else but white male? And they're complaining about a diversity hire. Of course, it's an insult, but I mean, it's a complete, utter insult, especially since people are talking about electing Donald Trump, who has 0 experience in politics before he became the president. But somehow that's not bad enough, right? That's not bad. It's the diversity hire, the one diversity hire in 100 years? So what was Obama? Was he also a diversity hire?
We are seeing for the first time this super PAC, which is now supporting Harris, saying they're coming out with an ad buy, some $50 million they're putting into this ad. I want to play a little bit of it.
She's the district attorney who protected children from sexual predators. She's the attorney general who stood up to the big banks to protect homeowners.
Yeah, so those 2 things, I wanted to highlight that, Matt, because again, and you spent your career trying to kind of nudge the Democrats or keep them in the center here. How much does Harris have to worry about that, and does this ad get to it?
Well, look, the entire ballgame here is winning the center, and the Harris team absolutely knows that. This is going to be a sprint to the general election where most voters have made up their minds already. The undecided voters tend to be centrists and moderates and independents. Those are the people that are up for grabs, and those are the people she's got to get. So this is a really good ad to focus on her tough as nails history as a prosecutor. And she's got to make clear to people that that's who she is. It's a very different game than she was in 2020 in a field of 19 other candidates running for a Democratic nomination. This is completely different. And she's got 3.5 years in the White House, lots of experience to talk about what they have done together and what she wants to do going forward, making this about the future. And I think she has a real opportunity to do that.
Matt Bennett, Kristen Soltis-Anderson, great to see you both this morning. Thanks so much.
This hour with a big development in the race for president here in the United States, where former President Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama have officially endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris for president. Here's a video released by the Harris campaign showing the moment that the Obamas called the vice president to offer their full support.
Kamala.
Hello. Hi. Hi.
Hey there.
Oh, hi, you're both together. Oh, it's good to hear you both.
I can't have this phone call without saying to my girl Kamala, I am proud of you. This is going to be historic.
We called to say Michelle and I couldn't be prouder to endorse you and to do everything we can to get you through this election and into the Oval Office.
Oh, my goodness. Michelle, Barack, this means so much to me. I'm looking forward to doing this with the two of you, Doug and I both, and getting out there, being on the road. But most of all, I just want to tell you the words you have spoken and the friendship that you have given over all these years mean more than I can express. So thank you both. It means so much. And we're going to have some fun with this too, aren't we?
Jen Palmieri, no surprise here. This was, of course, part of a coordinated rollout of endorsements, though there had been some chatter on the right, nonsensical, that the Obamas were having doubts about the vice president. That could not be further from the truth. So, no surprise, but still important. Tell us what you think this means.
Well, I think one thing that's important about it is that Mrs. Obama was on the call, right? And that the president said that they're both going to do everything they can because she just, politics is her husband's thing, and she's a phenomenally effective campaigner. But it doesn't necessarily look for opportunity to spend a lot of time campaigning. But I think for her to be on the call too says how important it is to her and that she wants to help as well. And the two of them are just such a major force. And they are longtime friends. And I think President Obama had stepped back from endorsing as other party leaders had to sort of give their room to be a process for somebody else to get in the race if they wanted to, but also to show that this is a real, legitimate nominating process. And now you're at the point where both of the Obamas are fully able to express being on board and wanting to campaign for her, and that's going to be a huge help.
Yeah, and Sam Stein, I think also the Obamas wanted to give room to President Joe Biden. He, of course, a friend, and yes, the Obamas behind the scenes certainly had concerns about his ability to win. But after Biden dropped out, they wanted to give him a little more space. And we also shouldn't lose sight of the history here, Sam, where this is the nation's first black president endorsing the woman who could be the second.
Oh, yeah, completely. I think that is getting a little bit lost amid what has been a very...
And that has got to be what really, whichever amount of racists really are in MAGA, which I have no doubt are enough, that's got to be the thing that simply ticks them off, rationally speaking, because, again, this doesn't happen often in, ever in American history, period. So whatever percent it is, it's an inkling of even 1%, it's not even 1%. So, yeah, but this is how they're reacting.
Dramatic, to put it bluntly, 4-week process here is that history is being made. This is going to be the first nomination of a black female candidate for president in our nation's history. I'm also struck by just, and Eugene, I'm kind of curious for your take on this. The convention in 3 weeks is going to, for months and months and months, we were expecting it would be a dreadful affair, potentially filled with protests, shades of...
What? Sorry, it's something that he said that just reminded me of the issue with Kamala Harris, people bringing up her ethnicity, right, as her ethnicity being important. And I'm also curious myself how they describe her, but I've never heard Kamala Harris actually describe herself in her own words, right? Maybe I should check that out and see if I can find that. But it does seem to be like some people at times they refer to her as Indian, maybe, and other times they refer to her as black. But I guess what they're saying is that she's both, right? Father being black and mother being Indian, I think. And I think that might be where the controversy lies, if there's a controversy at all. It might be self-explanatory, really. But yeah, there's this issue over that. For me, I don't really care so much about what her race is. I mean, it's in that way. For me, just the fact that she grew up where she grew up, went to school where she went to school, and to me, that pretty much says everything, right? So that means she has a relationship with the black community whoever she is, whatever her background, ethnicity is, um, she has some sort of cultural link to the black community in the U.S. That's what that tells me. But she could also maybe she talks other times about her Indian or Asian, background. I don't know. But to me, that's not the biggest point.
In 1968, it's shaping up to be something quite different. And I couldn't help but make the contrast. I was in Milwaukee. The lineup was interesting. The lead-up speakers included Hulk Hogan, Dana White. On Thursday night at the Democratic Convention, you could potentially see the sitting president of the United States being the warm-up act for the vice president to take a historic victory lap as the presidential candidate. Talk about just what that convention will be like, how star-studded it will be, and just the contrast between that convention and what was the Milwaukee convention for Republicans.
Well, I think the Democratic Convention this time is going to be the party of the year. I mean, can you imagine? They'll do a whole lot better than Hulk Hogan and Kid Rock. Let me put it that way. Who will come out. I can imagine the production values. I can just imagine, and the delegates. Just the general sense there is, as everybody knows, just objectively, this incredible feeling of energy within the Democratic Party right now that certainly wasn't there a week ago, and it is it's on a scale of one.
Yo, the MAGA people, they've been busy over the last decade, building up a image, a presence, in people's minds politically, right? Walking around with the tiki torches, doing all of this behavior that is maybe can be easily seen as bullying, right? And also criminal acts, right? When associated with the same thinking, so like mass shootings, this kind of stuff, police brutality, this kind of stuff. You see, it seems to me like, yeah. In any case, this might be one of those moments where, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. But in any case, here I'm losing my train of thought here. I'll catch it.
10, it's like a 12 right now, and who knows where it will be when they get there a week ago. And it
right.
is.
The Republican Party and MAGA, they've been doing these, you could say, terroristic type of things. And what that's done to the left is getting more energized and more solidified, and it's all around the fact that they realize that there's people openly out there talking about civil war and all of these things, So the left is getting energized because they see the hatred of the right. And so people know, okay, something's got to be done. And the only way it's pretty much going to get done is through this election. Has to be a message has to be sent out. A clear message has to be sent out about, the fate of the U.S. Do you want more tiki torch, MAGA stuff going on in your life, right? Or do you want the value that you put into the country? Do you want some of that back also in terms of taxes, in terms of benefits, social benefits, these kind of things? What do you want? You're going to vote for one or the other. You're not going to get both. You see? So, yeah.
It's on a scale of 1 to 10, it's like a 12 right now, and who knows where it will be when they get to the convention. So I think this is going to be a dramatic contrast. Given, as Republicans look back on their convention, you already have the kind of questions about J.D. Vance and was he really the right guy? Their candidate, Donald Trump, is clearly in a sour mood and kind of doesn't know exactly where to go and what to say, how to try to attack all of this. And most important of all, the convention, once again, will keep Trump out of the headlines, right? He has been doing whatever he could to get the spotlight, but it's not on him. It's off of him. It's on Kamala Harris.
Harris has secured the endorsement of Barack Obama. Nearly every major leader in the Democratic Party is now behind her candidacy. But this election cycle, some critical support is coming not from the world of politics, but from the world of pop. Beyonce has already given Harris permission to use her anthem Freedom out on the campaign trail. Of course, you've heard that. Olivia Rodrigo appeared to offer her endorsement earlier this week. British pop star Charlie XCX pledged her support in this post referencing her latest hit album, Brat. That sparked a slew of viral...
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context of all in which you live. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
All right, for more on the coconut trees and the context, let's discuss with Time senior correspondent and author of The Ones We've Been Waiting For, Charlotte Alter, Executive Director of Voters for Tomorrow, Santiago Mayer, Washington Post senior video reporter David Jorgensen, also known as the Washington Post TikTok guy, and co-founder of Betches Media, Sammy Sage. I'm pronouncing that as best as I can without getting myself in trouble. She's also the author of Democracy in Retrograde. Guys, thanks so much. Really appreciate this. Santiago, you have an exclusive preview of what Kamala Harris will say to your organization tomorrow. Let's take a listen to that.
In this election, we know young voters will be key, and we know your vote cannot be taken for granted. It must be earned, and that is exactly what we will do.
Yeah, I mean, Santiago, I'll start with you. I mean, is all of this energy that we're seeing, all the stuff that is going crazy online and so on, is that going to translate into votes, do you think?
For sure. First of all, thank you, Jim, so much for having me. I think what we're seeing right now is Gen Z is incredibly excited for Vice President Harris, and we are ready to get to work and elect her. As you saw, we have a special message from her for the Voters Tomorrow Summit, which is in Atlanta starting later today. And we're gathering 300 young leaders from across the country to come together, strategize, and figure out how we are going to break the 2020 record with youth voter turnout. And we're turning young voters out to elect Vice President Harris and to defeat Donald Trump.
And Charlotte, a new poll shows Harris pretty much just vastly outperforming Biden right now with young voters by 16 percentage points. That's according to this latest New York Times Siena College poll. What is stirring this excitement? I mean, I think I remember at the time when she made that comment about the context in which we all live. And so, I mean, people were, criticizing that as being a bit of a word salad. But, I've heard from a lot of younger folks over the last several days who just love that comment. So, I mean, is it just like the older folks not getting what the younger folks are thinking these days? What do you think?
So I don't, it's a great question. And I don't actually think it has very much to do with that comment at all. I think we've seen since 2016 in the 2018 midterms, in the 2020 election, and then in the 2022 midterms as well, young voters do not like Trumpism. Millennials and Gen Z are not very attracted to MAGA at all. Instead, the problem for this administration in this race has been that these younger voters weren't particularly attracted to Joe Biden either. And you would see in the polling over the course of this whole year, younger voters saying over and over again, we want somebody else. We want somebody else. We don't want these same two old white guys over and over again. Not just any old white guys, the same two old white guys who ran last time. You'd see that over and over in the polling. And I think that what this polling shift signifies is that these young voters just wanted somebody else. They wanted somebody new, somebody fresh, somebody who could credibly claim to help to be speaking to some of their issues. And I think the Harris campaign is attempting to provide that to these voters.
Yeah, I mean, they're really exploiting this moment, no question about it. And Sammy, after seeing all of these videos, Kamala Harris herself just joined TikTok. Here's her first post.
Madam Vice President, are you on TikTok?
Well, I've heard that recently I've been on the For You page, so I thought I'd get on here myself.
All right, Sammy, how big of a deal is that?
It's a huge deal. I think there's this misconception that TikTok is only for young people, but there are all age demographics that are represented on TikTok. And I think what people who are not really users of the app might miss about it is that it does have its own specific language and vibe. And Kamala Harris has a very authentic way of presenting herself that really makes sense with the way that TikTok users connect with things that go viral on the app. I think that we're really seeing the effects.
I think she's going to blow TikTok up. I mean, she's going to blow out Trump. And here's the thing, Trump, people are tired of Trump, but he's also an old guy, and he's a rude old guy. He's the rudest type, and yet that's who she's being paired up against. So in social media, as long as she goes out there and promotes herself, she's going to have a bigger effect because she is easier to receive. Trump is just a waste of social media space, but somehow he's been able to bully his way into it, but he has only the tools of a bully, no other tools,
Like Charlotte said, young people, and I think really any demographic that is not up to the boomers, they really want a younger, fresher vibe to be in the election, and she has brought it to us.
Yeah, and Dave, I mean, Trump is on TikTok. He's had about 6 posts. They have millions of views. I mean, that is one thing that has been happening on TikTok. I think it's one of the reasons why the Trump people don't want to ban TikTok now, because, I mean, MAGA is out there in full force on TikTok. Can you talk about that and what Kamala Harris is up against in terms of social media? And she's certainly making a lot of strides over the last week. There's no question about it.
Right, and the majority of Gen Z and millennials on TikTok tend to be liberal leaning, but there has been a huge influx of Trump supporters on the app that we've seen. We've been on the app as the Washington Post since 2019, and definitely there's been a movement that way a little bit, but it is coming back a little bit. And I think part of that is in the last year or so, what happened with Biden is it really became this whole thing where the way he handled the war in Gaza, a lot of people on TikTok did not like that. And while the tone of our coverage stayed the same, I noticed in the comment sections, there was a lot more people that were, not as excited about Biden as they used to be for a lot of the reasons that, Charlotte just gave. And the other part of this is that, he signed off on the TikTok ban. So I think for Harris, being on TikTok is really big, and also just sort of as much as she can or is able to, distancing herself from, how Biden has handled Gaza, as well as the ban on TikTok. And her just posting there alone is a really big deal. I've also seen a lot of people talk about how is she going to embrace these memes. I think there's sort of 2 schools of thoughts. You can, do all the memes that people are doing and try to replicate them, but you also want to come across as authentic. And I think the first video she posted does that because it's just her talking to the camera, and that can be really successful. As long as people feel like she's coming across as herself on TikTok, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, and Santiago, how can Kamala Harris lean into these viral moments Dave was just talking about a few moments ago, and avoid the trap of what the young people call cringe, which, even somebody of advanced age like myself, I know what that means. I'm also capable of cringe moments myself, but how does the candidate not fall into that trap?
Well, I think that Dave hit the nail on the head. I think that as long as she remains true to who she is, she will be just fine. And I think that's really why we're seeing sort of a social media movement that we're seeing behind her, because she is very relatable. She is fun. You were showing some of the videos with the Brad music. And at the end of the day, what is being a Brad if not being true to yourself and real and authentic? And I think that as long as that continues to be the case, as long as she's not doing anything that she's not like perceived to be true to herself, she's gonna be fine. I think she is someone who comes across as very fun, as very engaging, as very relatable. I can tell you that's been my experience with her whenever I've interacted with her. And she is someone who really cares about people and is sort of like a cool aunt in a lot of ways. So I think as long as that continues to be the message and that continues to be the image, the memes are going to continue to be successful.
Meeting with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, these remarks were not originally on her schedule, and they were actually more extensive remarks than President Biden made after his meeting with Netanyahu. Harris revealing details about what she called a frank conversation with the Israeli Prime Minister, and she made it clear that she wants an end to the war in Gaza.
As I just told Prime Minister Netanyahu, it is time to get this deal done. Let's get the deal done so we can get a ceasefire to end the war. Let's bring the hostages home, and let's provide much-needed relief to the Palestinian people. We cannot look away in the face of these tragedies. We cannot allow ourselves to become numb to the suffering, and I will not be silent.
Today's meeting comes as her campaign is getting a boost from a new poll by the New York Times. And what this showed was Harris narrowing the gap against Trump. Now, Trump got a post-convention bounce, but when you look at it all in aggregate, Harris is now 4 points ahead of where Biden was polling in the same poll before he dropped out, which puts the race in a statistical dead heat, 48-47. Now, we'll see. Does she just continue to surge up or not? Obviously, you haven't had the convention bounce from the Democrats yet. The poll does show Harris making strides with groups that Biden had been struggling with, which includes perhaps most notably young voters. 56% of those between the ages of 18 and 29 back Harris, which is 16 percentage points more than Biden. That's a pretty stunning number. Independents, 45. Biden had 37 there, so doing significantly better there as well. And with Latinos, 57% back her, it was 41% for Biden. So that is obviously dramatic. In electoral politics in the United States, it doesn't get more dramatic than that. In fact, it's unprecedented for anything to move like that. So that's the reality of the situation. The question is it for now or forever? But you do see that energy in the Harris campaign events that we've seen so far, too, what they've been getting in terms of the boost from the polls. Today, Harris speaking to an energized group of voters from the American Federation of Teachers.
While you teach students about democracy and representative government, extremists attack the sacred freedom to vote. Just think about it. So we want to ban assault weapons, and they want to ban books. In this moment, we are in a...
There was something that's just, I believe, just came out in the media where people were talking about Kamala spoke against some of the protesters. And I think Netanyahu also, right? He also spoke in his speech in the Capitol, or what? It was the House. Was it the Capitol? Yeah, but in any case, where he gave his speech, wherever it was, right? I forget which building, but where he gave the speech, it seemed like he made comments regarding the protesters being connected with terrorists, Hamas, right? And I'm curious. I believe there was some mention of Kamala also. Maybe she wasn't so explicit, but let me see if it's here.
Fight for our most fundamental and representative government. Extremists attack the sacred freedom to vote. Just think about it. So we want to ban assault weapons, and they want to ban books. In this moment, we are in a fight for our most fundamental freedoms. And to this room of leaders, I say, bring it on.
Okay, so no, this comment is unrelated, that one. But let me see if I can find the other one.
Bring it on. Bring it on.
Those three words now have been sort of a mantra, bring it on. The same message that she had for Trump today when she told reporters she's ready to debate the former president.
Many of you have been asking me about the debate, and I'll tell you, I'm ready to debate Donald Trump. I have agreed to the previously agreed upon September 10th debate. He agreed to that previously. Now it appears he's backpedaling, but I'm ready.
MJ Lee is out front live outside the White House to begin our coverage tonight. MJ, Vice President Harris delivering this address tonight. It's significant. Wouldn't usually necessarily be in the meeting and certainly not make comments afterwards as a VP, but this is now a completely new situation, right? And it was a moment for her to make a foreign policy statement, also a campaign moment outside the White House.
Yeah, you're totally right about that, Aaron. I think the last 2 hours gave us a really clear window into how the vice president is very quickly trying to shift gears and adjust to this new role that was thrust upon her just 4 days ago. CNN was TV pool for this meeting between the vice president and the prime minister. And typically, as you know, what happens is a small group of reporters goes into the room. We get a shot of the two leaders meeting, and then we're quickly brought out, and that's it. But instead, the small group of reporters in that room, we were taken to a holding room, and we were told by the vice president's team that she is actually going to deliver remarks as soon as that bilateral meeting wrapped up, which, as you point out, is not.
Said she had for President Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House. The presumptive Democratic nominee for president urged Israel's leader to agree to a truce in Gaza in exchange for the release of hostages held by Hamas. Harris said she had voiced her serious concern about the scale of human suffering in Gaza to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Netanyahu is in Washington to shore up support for Israel's ongoing war against Hamas, which came as a response to the militant Islamist terror attacks of October 7 last year. Here's more of what the vice president had to say.
It is important for the American people to remember the war in Gaza is not a binary issue. However, too often the conversation is binary, when the reality is anything but. So I ask my fellow Americans to help encourage efforts to acknowledge the complexity, the nuance, and the history of the region. Let us all condemn terrorism and violence. Let us all do what we can to prevent the suffering of innocent civilians, and let us condemn anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and hate of any kind. And let us work to unite our country. I thank you.
Let's get more now from William Glucroft, deputy editor of the Parliament magazine in Brussels, and DW correspondent Aya Ibrahim in Jerusalem. Good morning to you both. William, coming to you first. What's your takeaway from Harris's comments on talks with Netanyahu?
The substance seemed much the same from what we've seen from the Biden administration and really U.S. administrations and U.S. politics on the Israel issue for a very long time. But the style was different. There was much more focus on the plight of Palestinian civilians, on the devastation that we've seen in Gaza, and the need to move forward on this crisis, that it can't be a state of permanent war and just managing a conflict. There needs to be an end to this conflict in one way, shape, or form. The substance, though, was very much the same. We're hearing, still ironclad commitments to Israel and the defense of Israel. So really the question just is, how much does the style count? How many points do you give for the style over the substance? And that's something we're going to have to see in the weeks and months ahead. And of course, depending what actually happens with Kamala Harris's campaign and if she can actually pull off a win in November.
Aya, how is the Prime Minister's visit playing out in Israel?
Well, as his address in Congress was ongoing, I was walking through the streets here in Jerusalem, and people in cafes and corner stores were glued to the screens watching that speech. Here's the thing, here in Israel, regardless whether you believe in Prime Minister Netanyahu's promise of total victory, or whether you are pro a ceasefire deal as soon as possible, people here are acutely aware of the importance of the United States as an ally for Israel, and the power and the pressure that the United States and its officials can exert on the Israeli government to move forward with the conduct of this war. So definitely a very, very closely watched visit. We've heard from families of hostages who want American officials, the president and the vice president, to use their influence to try and get this deal done, as the vice president just said there, while there are others who are a bit more closer to the demands of what Prime Minister Netanyahu, that Prime Minister Netanyahu made in Congress, namely to give more weapons and to, according to him, get the job done faster. At the same time, the Prime Minister made this visit to Washington at a time where his approval ratings are at an all-time low. Up to 70% of Israelis, according to some polls, want to see him resign. And he was really at ease and in his element giving that address in Congress, getting that applaud. That's not something that he gets here in Israel. So he also used that visit to try to play to his own audience and to his supporters here, to show them that in Washington, with Israel's biggest ally, he's still someone who's very well connected and can speak to officials in a way that they will listen and even give a standing ovation.
William, you said earlier that the substance of Harris's comments were similar to the policy from the Biden administration. But were Kamala Harris to become president, would her administration have a slightly different policy on Israel?
Well, we'll have to wait and see, of course, if she even becomes president at all. The Democrats right now are facing a really interesting inflection point in the history of U.S.-Israeli relations. One is that the Arab American, the Palestinian American community, and those sympathetic to the Palestinian.
So this is interesting because there's another story that says there's an ICC warrant out for Netanyahu. Check this out. Hold on. Exactly.
Thanks, John. Just to take the long view of this, very early in President Biden's presidency, February the 4th, 2021, he spoke at the State Department about his priorities in foreign policy. And he said that one of those priorities was reclaiming our credibility and moral authority. The Prime Minister of Israel is, in the judgment of the Chief Prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, a war criminal. Isn't posting an alleged war criminal in the Oval Office undermining of credibility and moral authority?
No, because we don't consider him a war criminal.
But the International Criminal Court does.
We don't agree. And as we've said before, we don't find the ICC's finding to be relevant or appropriate in this case. We don't find him to be a war criminal. He's an ally and a partner and a friend.
Well, the chief prosecutor says that Israel does have legitimate war aims, of course, but the way Israel chose to achieve these in Gaza, namely intentionally causing death, starvation, great suffering, and serious injury to body or health of the civilian population, are criminal.
Is that a question? Because if it is, I've already answered it. We don't consider him a war criminal.
Good.
Thank you, Corinne.
Thank you. Yes, she called you.
I thought she said Jenny.
Thank you very much. I said Jenny.
That was Jenny?
Yeah.
My bad.
Thank you.
2024, if you still say link in bio, I'll be. If you are a creator, you want your followers to check out your website, get your newsletter, or check out YouTube channel, stop telling them to.
This is not me talking.
U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris has held talks with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House. The presumptive Democratic
to, make some waves and be a point of contention. Mm-hmm. So the question is, which of these two powerful interest groups are going to be important and possibly decisive in the election in November for Kamala Harris? And if so, if the Palestinian voice can break through at a political level, you're going to have to see more attention to that side of this conflict.
The White House has told Netanyahu to get a ceasefire deal done. Could this visit push that deal over the line?
It's very difficult to tell. We've been here before where we've seen the United States and other mediators try to push the Israeli government and Hamas, for that matter, to, inch towards another hostage for prisoner exchange deal with some kind of cessation of hostilities. So it's difficult to tell, but certainly the negotiations were set to start in Doha this week. There was an Israeli delegation that was supposed to fly to Doha yesterday, but according to Israeli media reports, the Prime Minister Netanyahu asked them to delay their departure, hoping because he wanted to speak to the president and the vice president before they could travel and start the negotiations. And that's being heavily criticized here by families of hostages and their allies, who say that the negotiation should by no means be a political trip for the prime minister to play during his visit in Washington, and that delegation should have already been on its way.
William Glucroft from the Parliament magazine in Brussels and DW correspondent Aya Ibrahim in Jerusalem. Thank you both.
DW report.
Two seconds. Yeah, let me see here. There's one more story.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Joe Biden met face-to-face at the White House this afternoon to discuss the war in Gaza. Netanyahu also met separately with the vice president. CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang has more.
Got a lot to talk about. In their private meeting, President Biden pressured Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu to accept the latest ceasefire and hostage release deal, a top priority for Biden in the last 6 months of his term.
Bring home all the hostages and bring peace and security to the Middle East and end this war.
The White House believes it is on the brink of brokering an agreement.
We are closer now, we believe, than we've been before.
Promising words for the family members of hostages who met with the two leaders in private.
They understand the urgency of this moment now, to waste no time.
3 Israeli-American hostages died in Hamas custody. 5 others are unaccounted for, including 22-year-old Omer Nutra.
The urgency, and we expressed it multiple times today to both leaders, it's so critical that everything will be done as if there's no tomorrow.
Biden has grown increasingly frustrated with Netanyahu's handling of the conflict and inability to make a deal.
What I will tell you is I think what he's doing is a mistake.
The prime minister has been criticized for focusing more on wiping out Hamas than freeing the hostages. Nearly 10 months of war has left almost 40,000 killed and about 500,000 people facing catastrophic hunger levels in Gaza. The likely Democratic nominee also met with Netanyahu late today.
Finn Gomez and Aaron Navarro join us now. Welcome to both of you. And let's take a look first right off the bat at this new campaign video that the Harris campaign.
Yeah, now check this out. Regarding the ICC, let's see what Chat GDP just pulled up. Do I go here? Oh, no, it's not here. Let me see. I go to this one. Right. Check this out.
The United States, Russia, and China do not fully adhere to the International Criminal Court, ICC. 1. United States. The U.S. has signed the Rome Statute, the treaty that established the ICC, but has not ratified it. This means that while the U.S. participated in the negotiations and initially signed the treaty, it has not formally committed to being bound by it. The U.S. has expressed concerns about the potential for politically motivated prosecutions of its citizens, particularly its military personnel. Consequently, the U.S. has taken steps to protect its citizens from ICC jurisdiction, including passing the American Service Members Protection Act, ASPA, which limits U.S. cooperation with the ICC. 2. Russia. Russia signed the Rome Statute in 2000, but never ratified it. In 2016, Russia formally withdrew its signature, indicating that it does not intend to become a party to the ICC. Russia has criticized the ICC, particularly in the context of its investigations into the 2008 conflict in Georgia and other matters that Russia perceives as biased or politically motivated. 3. China. China has neither signed nor ratified the Rome Statute. China's position has been that the ICC's jurisdiction and procedures might infringe on national sovereignty. China has raised concerns about the potential for the ICC to be used for political purposes and has called for reforms to the court's structure and processes. Therefore, none of these three major powers, the United States, Russia, or China, are members of the ICC, and they do not adhere to its jurisdiction.
Put out today the first video starring Kamala Harris. Take a listen.
We choose a future where no child lives in poverty, where we can all afford health care, where no one is above the law.
So, Finn, what do you make of the fact that this new campaign video makes use right off the bat of Donald Trump's mugshot?
Again, showing that split screen between her prosecutor record and his recent conviction, right? And we've seen some of those billboards as well, where it shows her with the text underneath her face saying prosecutor, and with Trump it says convict, right? And you're seeing some of that. And I think, by the way, I mean, that video I think is a really, really polished, well-produced video. And of course, we did not see a lot of Beyonce with Joe Biden.
Right. A very different feel from the campaign. We're also getting much more casual press releases from.
Let me see here. Oops. Sorry about that. That's the wrong daggone video. Is it this one?
Our nation.
Right. So, no, it's not this one.
And a whole lot more.
Sorry about that. Let me see here. Which one was it? This one? Right. It's this one. Here we go. Okay, so that was it. Sorry about that. That was actually it. So far, this is essentially a question of the ICC. The U.S., Russia, China, none of them have ratified it. China has not even signed the agreement. Russia and the U.S. have signed it, but they haven't ratified it, meaning put it into law. And into their own law. And oh well. So a lot of the stories about the ICC can be, when people speak about the US, then you can also know it's a similar situation probably with Russia and China as well. Right? There's reasons for why they don't do things. Ultimately, you hear a lot about the pressure from the US because I guess they say the US was the major funder, or what was it? Let me see here. The United States, Russia, and China do not fully adhere to the International Criminal Court. The U.S. has signed the Rome Treaty that established the ICC, but has not ratified it. This means that while the U.S. participated in the negotiations and initially signed the treaty, so participated in the negotiations. Okay, so they didn't create it, but they participated and maybe in part created. Okay, so yeah, any case, folks, it is wild. It's been a wild. I was listening to Shaka I don't know if y'all listen to my Aunt Forever, but and so it's been very interesting over there. I've been listening, and it is just, whoo, another world. But in any case, what are y'all thoughts on Kamala Harris and the polling? Let me see if I can find something. Harris, Trump polling. Actually, I found something online, but not recently, but not here. Let's see this.
Introducing the ultimate AI voiceover.
If it's this one.
New polling from the Wall Street Journal shows that Vice President Kamala Harris is closing in on former President Donald Trump.
And it is my intention to go out and earn this nomination and to win.
She's essentially erased Donald Trump's lead that he had over Biden when he was at the top of the ticket. It wasn't just that voters out there had concerns about the Democratic Party's policies or how Joe Biden had governed over the past couple of years. In fact, it was very specific concerns about him and his perceived fitness for office based on his age. With Kamala Harris on the ticket, we can see that there are at least some voters out there who, within a very short amount of time, are now willing to consider voting for the Democratic Party and putting a Democrat in the White House when just a week ago they were not.
Here are the major takeaways from the poll. The majority of people say they are more motivated to vote with Harris stepping in as a likely nominee.
What we've seen in the public ever since Kamala Harris became the nominee, with how many big donors have pledged to her super PAC, with how many grassroots donors have pledged to her campaign.
You know how much money Kamala Harris raised in her first day of fundraising? Get this, she raised $81 million. That is the largest amount ever raised in a single day.
It really all together suggests that Democrats are just much more enthusiastic and energized to vote in a way that they weren't when Joe Biden was at the top of the ticket.
And that's especially important among Black, Latino, and young voters, part of the coalition that helped put President Joe Biden in the White House, whose support has been slipping in recent years.
It wasn't so much that Donald Trump was necessarily gaining support, but rather Joe Biden's support was slipping to a degree that suggested there might be some part of his base that might not come out on election day. Now what we're seeing is that Kamala Harris being at the top of the ticket seems to really have awakened those coalitions that put them in the White House in the first place. And you're not seeing quite as much slippage in support compared to 2020.
Should Harris win the nomination as expected, she would also be the first female nominee of color.
One of the things we heard a lot about just in our reporting was concern among some Democrats, even some Democratic women of color, of whether America was ready for a Black woman to lead the country. So in our poll, we asked people, does her being a Black woman of South Asian descent matter to whether or not they would support her?
The majority of people said that it wouldn't affect their decision to support her, but were less likely to say the same about most Americans.
It's essentially saying, I don't really care, but I'm not sure if other people will care. While there are some positive signs for Democrats in this poll, especially considering where they were when President Biden was at the top of the ticket, there are some positive signs for President Trump as well. And the poll suggests that this race is going to be incredibly close through Election Day.
About 51% of voters said that they approve of Trump's past performance as president.
That's the highest we've seen in our poll so far this election cycle.
But only about 41% approve of Harris's performance as vice president.
The fact that so many Americans view Kamala Harris's job as vice president negatively does help explain.
Let me see that. What just happened there? They said, let me see how they split that vote.
This race is going to be incredibly close through Election Day.
About 51% of voters said that they approve of Trump's past performance as president.
That's the highest we've seen in our poll so far this election cycle.
But only about 41% approve of Harris's performance as vice president.
The fact that so many Americans view Kamala Harris's job as vice president negatively does help explain why this fact
and approve of.
All right, disapprove. 8% of Republicans disapprove of Trump's presidency and 50% disapproved. Wow, that's very interesting, man. That's interesting. Okay. And don't know, refused. Okay, so that's 10% though. Don't know why they. Okay, okay. Damn, 10%. That's a big number though. Because look, don't know, refused for the Republicans is like what, 2%, right? So
Harris's performance as vice president.
The fact that so many Americans view Kamala Harris's job as vice president negatively does help explain why the Trump campaign and President Trump himself have really tried to tie Kamala Harris being Joe Biden's running mate to his record and his policies on immigration and his stewardship of the economy, two areas that are really key for voters and areas where they think Donald Trump would be better if he were elected president.
A vote for Kamala is a vote for 4 more years of dishonesty, incompetence, weakness, and failure.
So I think you'll continue to see through Election Day, Trump and his campaign really try to convince voters that despite Kamala Harris being younger than Joe Biden, in their view, she owns his record just as much as he would.
yeah, now let me see here. Right.
Experience an empowered ecosystem designed.
There we go. 2 seconds, y'all. Right. Now there's some issue about the name calling. And yeah, let me just see what that's about while I have my coffee here. Is it ready? I think it is.
I shouldn't tell you 100. And they've been to, I shouldn't tell you, 129 different rallies. Can you believe it? Look how great they look. And their husbands love them. I don't know how the husbands do this. They travel all over, and finally we have one in North Carolina, nice and easy. It's nice and easy for you. No, they're incredible people. 129 rallies, it's great. But it's really tremendous to be back in this beautiful state with thousands and thousands of proud, hardworking American patriots, which is what you are. This is a nice arena. How about the people outside that can't get in? That's a lot of people, too. Would anybody like to give up your seats? Would anybody? You're just not generous people. As you know, 3 days ago, we officially defeated the worst president in the history of our country, crooked Joe Biden. He quit because he was losing so badly in the polls. He was down in every single poll and down by a lot, so he quit. But really, what happened was the leaders of the Democrat Party, in a very undemocratic move, the bosses, they said, either you get out or we're going to throw you out using the 25th Amendment. That's what happened. You know that. So what? Well, you know that. That's what happens. That's what happens. These are nasty people, the Democrats. So we better beat them or we're not going to have a country left. You're not going to have a country left. So now we have a new victim to defeat. Lion Kamala Harris. Lion. L-Y-I-N apostrophe. The most incompetent and far-left vice president in American history. By the way, they did a poll. She was rated the worst vice president in history. I've never seen that poll before, but that's the poll. Together, we will win North Carolina in an epic
Okay, Buccaneer, let me check. I'm going to check on that real quick.
landslide. We're way ahead in the poll.
No, the Wall Street Journal, WSJ, is not owned by Fox News. The WSJ is owned by News Corp, a media company controlled by Rupert Murdoch and his family. News Corp is distinct from Fox Corporation, which owns Fox News. Here's a brief overview of the ownership structure. News Corp. This is the parent company that owns the Wall Street Journal, along with other properties like the New York Post and various international news and media outlets. Fox Corporation. This company owns Fox News, Fox Business, and other Fox-branded television assets. It was formed after the 2019 sale of 21st Century Fox's entertainment assets to the Walt Disney Company. Both News Corp and Fox Corporation are controlled by the Murdoch family, but they are separate entities.
Okay, so it is owned by Rupert Murdoch. They said all that before, but it actually is. That's interesting. Yeah, what do y'all think about that? Well, I guess what you're saying, Buccaneer, is that it puts the polling, in a certain light. Yeah, so you think maybe they favor Trump in their polling because it's right wing media? Is that what you're saying? But hey, that's an excellent point. In any case, I learned something here because, as it says, Rupert Murdoch's family owns both companies, and he owns one of the companies that owns or is a major stakeholder in. Let's see, what does it say? I don't want to misquote it here. Let's play it one more time. Let's hear it back.
No, the Wall Street Journal, WSJ, is not owned by Fox News. The WSJ is owned by News Corp, a media company controlled by Rupert Murdoch and his family.
So
News
there you
Corp
have
is
it.
distinct from Fox Corporation.
So it's not Rupert Murdoch; it's his family. So that's the same thing, essentially. For our purposes. Let's see here. Good point, bro. Excellent. Thank you for that. Let's see here. Is this the one I was about to play? Let's see here. 2 seconds. What the heck? Hold on. That wasn't it. Was it this one? It's this one. Sorry. Here it is. I don't know why this is acting up suddenly, but that's interesting. Let me see that. Is it here? Yeah. What do you all think about the situation with the Palestinians and the U.S. and Israel? Let's see here. Let me bring this back a little bit. And what do you think about this guy Vance? Right here.
Or should be done to
anti-child.
Vance calling out the record low birth rate in the country, saying more should be done to encourage people to have families, trying to clarify these comments in 2021 that resurfaced this week.
We're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies.
Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign responding overnight, calling Vance weird and creepy, adding on Trump's rally, America can do better than the bitter, bizarre, and backwards-looking delusions of criminal Donald Trump. At her first few campaign stops as a new candidate, Harris herself focused on children and families too.
We see a future with affordable health care, affordable child care, and paid leave, not for some, but for all.
Now, Democrats have also continued to push to restore the expanded child tax credit. Senator Vance in that interview talked about wanting to lower housing costs for families, but little else in terms of concrete policy proposals. I think really opening himself up to that question of what exactly are Republicans pushing for families.
Yeah, that's something to watch moving forward. And Mary Alice, you also have an update from the FBI on that assassination attempt on Trump.
Yeah, during his testimony last week on Capitol Hill, FBI Director Christopher Wray said that there was still some question about whether Trump was hit by a bullet or shrapnel.
Yo, exactly. Guess what, y'all? That's exactly what I was looking for. This one thing. Now we get to the meat and the potatoes. Was the man hit or not by a bullet? He said he took a bullet for the United States.
But the FBI overnight put out a statement saying clearly what struck former President Trump in the ear was a bullet, whether whole or fragmented into smaller pieces, fired, of course, from that deceased subject's
That's
rifle.
in line with what Trump was saying, what his doctor was
100%.
saying as well. Mary Alice.
Fired, of course, President Trump in the ear was a bullet. FBI overnight put out a statement saying clearly what struck former President Trump in the ear was a bullet, whether whole or fragmented into smaller pieces, fired, of course, from that deceased subject's
That's
rifle.
in line with what Trump was saying, what
Okay, whether whole or fragmented. Okay.
his doctor
Okay,
was saying
so-
as well. Mary Alice, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
well.
Let me show you a groundbreaking plug.
Let's see here. Polling. Back to this polling. Polling shows Kamala Harris ahead. Now let's see what this one.
Well, a new poll in the race for the White House in a key swing state. The survey among New Hampshire voters shows Vice President Kamala Harris 6 points ahead of former President Donald Trump. It's the largest poll of voters there since Harris emerged as the likely Democratic nominee. And tomorrow, the vice president will attend a campaign fundraiser in Western Massachusetts.
And as the race heats up, Harris and Trump are now battling over their potential debate. CBS's Jared Hill joins us live from New York with the latest on this, Jared.
Hey, Anna, Brianna, and actually this morning we are seeing Vice President Harris picking up a major endorsement from former President Barack Obama. Several members of the Obama world have been involved in the early days of the Harris campaign, including his Attorney General Eric Holder handling the VP vetting process. All that was missing was the former president himself. CBS News has learned former President Barack Obama is planning on backing Vice President Kamala Harris, quote, soon. That's according to a source who says Obama has been in constant contact with Harris.
I am running to become president of the United States of America.
Thursday, the vice president accepted the endorsement of the nation's largest teachers union. Also yesterday, her first face-to-face with a world leader since entering the presidential race less than a week ago, pressing Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for a Gaza deal.
Israel has a right to defend itself, and how it does so matters.
Former President Donald Trump says he'll meet with Netanyahu in Mar-a-Lago later today. As Trump adjusts his focus from Biden to Harris, national polls show the two already running neck and neck just days into her candidacy.
She's bad news. She's a radical.
Harris says she's ready to debate Trump.
I think the voters deserve to see the split screen that exists in this race.
Earlier this week, Trump suggested he was open to more than one debate with Harris. Months ago, he said he'd debate Biden anytime, any place. But last night, the Trump campaign released a statement saying it would be inappropriate to finalize a debate before the Democrats formally decide their nominee. Harris hit back, tweeting, quote, "What happened to anytime, any place?" Former President Trump's running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, is also facing some growing scrutiny for suggesting 3 years ago that people without children should not be in positions of power. Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, who's been named as a potential for Vice President Harris's VP, called the notion obnoxious, rude, and, quote, not surprising. Guys, back to you.
All right, Jared Hill, thank you.
Wouldn't it be crazy if you could create voice
that resurfaced this week?
We're effectively run in this country via the Democrats.
Wait a second. What is this? Hold on. Where is the
Democrats via our corporate oligarchs by a bunch of childless cat ladies?
Vice President Kamala.
No. Where is this? Oh, here it is. Sorry about that. It didn't actually switch correctly. That's terrible. Here we go. Let's play it.
Will you apologize to Central Park 5? They've been exonerated. There have been videos, movies shown about the case, and you came out with a full-page ad saying that they should die, that they should have the death penalty.
Why do you bring that question up now? It's an interesting time to bring it up. You have people on both sides of that. They admitted their guilt. If you look at Linda Fairstein and if you look at some of the prosecutors, they think that the city should never have settled that case. So we'll leave it at that.
Will you apologize to Central Park 5? They've been exonerated. There have been videos, movies shown about the case, and you came out with a full-page ad saying that they should die, that they should have the death penalty. Why do you bring that question up now? It's an interesting time to bring it up. You have people on both sides of that. They admitted their guilt. If you look at Linda Fairstein and if you look at some of the prosecutors, they think that the city should never have settled that case. So,
Right. Now, what do y'all
Politics
think?
now with
What do y'all think when you think about Trump being hit in the ear by a bullet, right? What do you all what is that what do you think when you compare that to the fact that he actually took out a full page ad calling for the death penalty? Now, let me see something here. Let me just pull this chat GDP back up real quick. Hopefully it can solve this quickly. Did Donald Trump take out a full page ad in support of the death penalty for the Central Park 5? It's better than going through separate articles yourself. So here we go. Let's check it out.
Yes, Donald Trump took out full-page ads in 4 major New York City newspapers in 1989, calling for the reinstatement of the death penalty in response to the case of the Central Park 5. These ads appeared.
Whoa! Did you hear that? The man took out 4. I thought it was 1. Yes, Donald Trump took out full-page ads in 4 major New York City newspapers, calling for the reinstatement of the death penalty in response to the case of the Central Park 5. I didn't know it was 4, y'all.
Yes, Donald Trump took out full-page ads in 4 major New York City newspapers in 1989, calling for the reinstatement of the death penalty in response to the case of the Central Park 5. These ads appeared in the New York Times, the New York Daily News, the New York Post, and New York Newsday. The Central Park 5 were a group of 5 Black and Latino teenagers wrongfully accused and convicted of raping a jogger in Central Park. The ad, which cost an estimated $85,000, did not mention the Central Park 5 by name, but was widely interpreted as a call for harsh punishment against them. The headline of the ad read, "Bring back the death penalty. Bring back our police." Years later, the convictions of the Central Park 5 were vacated after another individual confessed to the crime, and DNA evidence confirmed his involvement. Despite this, Trump has continued to maintain that the 5 were guilty.
Right. What do y'all think about that? I mean, just that is really ridiculous. That and Trump, there's another person that confessed to the crime, and Trump is still in denial. Obviously, it's easy to explain why he would be, because to not be in denial would be, that wouldn't work out too well for him. In fact, but let's see here. Let me go back to, let's see here. What is it? Posters, response to Harris. Okay. Let me see what the GOP is saying. Right. And this is actual CNN. So let's see if it's going to play.
Yeah, she's a woman.
For a rematch with Joe Biden, Donald Trump this week was forced to pivot and hone in on Kamala Harris as his opponent. And with about 100 days until Election Day, the clock is ticking to come up with a brand new playbook.
Lion, Kamala Harris, Lion, L-Y-I-N apostrophe.
Donald Trump trying out some new attack lines.
She is a radical left lunatic, more liberal than Bernie Sanders.
Painting his new opponent as extreme and going after her policies.
Kamala's deadly destruction of America's borders is completely and totally disqualifying.
Blaming her in ads for covering for her boss.
Kamala was in on it. She covered up Joe's obvious mental decline.
While others in Trump's party took a different route.
This is the thing. This is another thing. Trump, he likes to talk about migrants, and he has this phony kind of immigrant story about Americans, and America, but he is actually, his family immigrated to the U.S. himself after the Civil War, not before or anywhere around the War of Independence. No, his family came long after. You see, those issues were resolved. The country was already on its way when Trump's family came. So, and I'm only saying that because he doesn't talk about the whole story about migration. And he has his own way of looking at it. But in any case, oh my goodness, what was I saying now? But Trump's family doesn't. But here, he's running against, think about this again. This is another nightmare scenario. He's running against someone who, if he could make laws, if he could become president himself, he would make sure, likely, he would try to get rid of the possibility of anyone like Kamala Harris ever running for president again. That's what they're talking about in Project 2025. And you could be sure that's what's going on in his mind right now. Because look, he pulled out of the debate after he said he was waiting for the Obamas to endorse her first. Then after they endorsed her, then he pulled out like, no, well, it's different than I thought it would be. Now I have another reason why. You see, he just made up a new reason why he couldn't debate her. And now it's not going to happen, apparently, right? They say. But in reality, he would like to make it so someone like her could never be president again. You see what I'm saying? Like, literally, that's what's going on in the guy's brain. You could be almost sure of it. I'm saying, if anything else, think about it. When you look at Project 2025, look at what they're talking about anyway: gutting government services, standards, everything, ethics, gone. They want that right under the White House power, executive house, right? They want that under the executive control, the control of the president. All those departments directly. You see, that is insane. And then on top of it, he's been talking about immigrants, talking about immigrants, talking about immigrants. And Kamala Harris herself, family, can be perceived are immigrants, essentially, right? Or Jamaican, right? So he's taking a direct stab at that, and for him to lose to that would be like the ultimate defeat. So you could be sure whatever is sick coming out of his mind is going to come out right now. Like, whatever is there, it's going to come out, and it's only begun. It's only 10%. It's only to the 10% level of the vile nature that he could really bring it to. And they probably sitting back trying to discuss how far should he go, and can he go? And then they're going to unleash it, because this man is faced with his own mirror. Donald Trump is faced with the villain that he created in his mind, that he's campaigned against. That would be Kamala Harris. Everything that's in Project 2025 is race and gender. And he's running against that. So this is like, the Grim Reaper coming after his ass. Y'all, I'm serious. Hold on, let me read Buccaneer's statement here. Let me see. The Central Park Five was wrongly accused of raping a woman. Yeah. However, Trump has been found liable in a civil suit for raping a woman. Yes, absolutely correct, brother. Remember how many women have accused him of absolute. Yo, you're on fire today, and those are my sentiments exactly. And thank you for reminding us, because that is real talk. That's facts. That's exactly what's going on. That's straight up the middle. This is like reality. It is what it is, bro. But this is exactly what we're seeing. You know, I guess what would that be called, man? What would that be called? Double jeopardy? Worse, It's like yeah, it's a really telling political situation. Some very um, interesting factors and dynamics at play here. Gender, race. Then the other dynamic would be, opposing thing would be the central. Donald Trump did actually want the death penalty and accused the Central Park Five of committing the act, even though someone else confessed to it later. Um, and he really is himself a person that was going around great that couldn't be trusted in the park at night. Essentially, he couldn't be trusted in the park in the daytime. Trump, let alone at night. You know what I'm saying? Just one of him. Imagine if this. Imagine. You know what? I almost guarantee you, I would. I'm gonna go on a little journey. You just inspired me, brother. Let me see something here. Let me go back over to. Let's see here. Chat GDP, right? And let me open. Let me open this and see if I can find. What happened here? Here we go. All right, so let me see here. Let me bring it up on the screen. I want to find out how many share screen. How many similar crimes have happened in Central Park over the years? Let me see here. Um, let me just type something here. Let's see what they come up to. Because in all reality, that park must have a history. Um, okay, let me see here. Oh, it's still bringing back information. Okay. I wanted to know. I should have asked a more specific question, but let me see here.
The history of Central Park in New York City, spanning nearly 200 years, includes numerous incidents of sexual assault, reflecting broader societal issues and changes in the city over time. Here's a summary of significant points related to this dark aspect of the park's history. 19th century, 1857 to 1876, creation and early years. Central Park was officially opened in 1858 and completed in 1876. During its early years, the park was a symbol of urban planning and green space for the city's residents. Reports of crime, including sexual assault, were relatively rare in historical records, partly due to lower population density and less media coverage. Early to mid-20th century, 1920s to 1940s, Central Park became increasingly popular, but crime began to rise.
Let me see something here. Has there been a history of let me ask a more oh my god. I'm sorry about this, but you could ask any question, but I just wanted to get to the gist to some this may not be all the information I'm looking for, but it will give me closely what I'm asking for. So let me see here. I know sexual assault is not it's not a racial thing or ethnicity thing. It happens in all ethnic groups. It's just I'm curious what the
Yes, males of European descent have committed sexual assaults in Central Park, as they have in various other contexts throughout history. Sexual assault as a crime transcends racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic boundaries. Here are a few notable instances involving males of European descent in Central Park. Historical context, general patterns. Throughout the late 19th and early 20th centuries, records of crimes, including sexual assault, were not systematically kept, and many incidents went unreported or were poorly documented. However, it is likely that males of various backgrounds, including those of European descent, committed sexual assaults during this time. 1980s, prevalent crime period. The 1980s saw an increase in violent crime in Central Park. While many crimes were committed by individuals of various racial and ethnic backgrounds, specific high-profile cases involved perpetrators of European descent. Notable cases: the 1989 Central Park jogger case. Although this case is most famously associated with the wrongful conviction of the Central Park Five, Black and Latino teenagers, the actual perpetrator, Matias Reyes, who confessed in 2002 and was confirmed by DNA evidence, is of Hispanic descent. However, the case itself brought widespread attention to crime in the park and reflected the broader societal issues, including racial profiling and injustice. Contemporary context, 21st century. In more recent years, there have been various instances of sexual assault in Central Park involving perpetrators of different backgrounds, including those of European descent. These cases reflect the ongoing nature of sexual violence and the importance of addressing it comprehensively. Summary. While specific data on the racial and ethnic background of all sexual assault perpetrators in Central Park is not exhaustively documented, it is clear that males of European descent, like those from other backgrounds, have been involved in such crimes. The issue of sexual assault in Central Park, and more broadly, highlights the need for continued efforts in prevention, victim support, and justice system reforms. Broader implications. Underreporting and documentation. Many incidents of sexual assault go unreported due to stigma, fear, and mistrust of authorities. This makes it challenging to compile comprehensive statistics based on the perpetrator's background. Systemic issues. The history of crime in Central Park underscores broader systemic issues, including societal attitudes towards sexual violence, the effectiveness of policing, and the criminal justice system's role in addressing these crimes. Addressing sexual violence requires a multifaceted approach that includes education, community support, improved law enforcement practices, and ongoing societal change to ensure safety and...
All right, you know what? It's interesting because just looking into this guy right here is the actual person that committed the crime. And but he's not part of the Central Park Five, right? And it's interesting that he admitted to the crime. But what do you think the motivation is behind Donald Trump not giving an apology? Like, do you think it's because actually ChatGPT described him as European descent? Does he look European descent to you? Also, I'm just curious about that. And it goes to show you that even though you use something like ChatGPT, you should double check things too, in different ways, but double check. But check this out. You see, this is what ChatGPT called a European, but in any case, or European descent, he may have partial. So maybe that's why they're doing that. But check this out. Central Park Five. This is the guy who did it. He wasn't one of the other kids. He had no association with them. And apparently he was a serial killer. Apparently. Hold on. Matias Reyes wasn't there for the entire attack. Savior. What? Okay. See, I've never listened to any of his accounts before. I'm not sure if I want to play one of these. Hold on, here's one. Chasing News One Wild. Yeah, apparently they're saying he was a serial rapist. And yeah, do you think this is why Donald Trump doesn't want to apologize for the ads in the Central Park Five? Um, yeah, maybe. In any case, yeah. Let me see here. What y'all think? Buccaneer, I was telling you your oh, okay, hold on. Let me see. Oh, Trump will never admit he was wrong. Yeah, another thing about the Central Park Five is it used to be a predominantly black community. It was torn down and the citizens were displaced in order to create the park. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I heard it's also some graves that were there also. Um, let me see. Was Central Park built over a graveyard? Let me see here. Let me pull that back up. Oh, it's still pulling information. Okay, here we go.
Central Park in New York City was not built over a graveyard, but it was constructed over a pre-existing community known as Seneca Village. Seneca Village was a predominantly African-American settlement in the 19th century, with some Irish and German immigrants also living there. It was located on land that now makes up the western part of Central Park, from around 82nd to 89th Streets between 7th and 8th Avenues. History of Seneca Village. Formation. Seneca Village was established in 1825 when landowners began selling lots to African Americans. It grew into a thriving community with its own churches, schools, and cemeteries. Displacement. In the 1850s, as the city planned the creation of Central Park, the residents of Seneca Village were forcibly displaced. The city used eminent domain to acquire the land, and the residents were evicted, their homes demolished, and the community dispersed. Central Park's construction, design, and creation. The design for Central Park by Frederick Law Olmsted and Calvert Vaux was selected in 1858. Construction began shortly thereafter, and the park was officially completed in 1876. Impact on former residents. The displacement of Seneca Village's residents was a significant and traumatic event for the community. While they were compensated for their land, the compensation often did not match the true value of their properties or the intangible losses of their homes and community ties. Archaeological findings. Excavations. Archaeological excavations in recent years have uncovered remnants of Seneca Village, including foundations of homes, personal artifacts, and other items that provide insights into the lives of its residents. These findings have helped historians and the public gain a better understanding of this important chapter in New York City's history. Modern recognition. Commemoration. Today, there are efforts to commemorate and educate the public about Seneca Village. Signs and markers in Central Park provide information about the history of the village and its significance. The New York Historical Society and other organizations have also hosted exhibits and events to raise awareness. While Central Park itself was not built over a graveyard, the creation of the park involved the destruction of Seneca Village, a significant and vibrant community. This aspect of the park's history is an important reminder of the social and historical complexities involved in urban development.
Yep. That was very, very interesting. Okay, so there were some graveyards there or cemeteries there, but it was the entire village, Seneca Village. And I was aware of Seneca Village, and I was also aware of the cemeteries. But I've heard also some stories that highlighted the cemeteries, I guess. So I guess that's why that popped up in my mind. But let me see. Are there any stories about that cemetery? Okay. What data is available regarding the cemeteries and families who lived in, is it Seneca Village, NYC? This might be a little off topic, this Central Park thing, but I decided since we touched on that, let me just look into a few things here and then I'm going to be out. Let's see.
Seneca Village, a vibrant 19th century community located in what is now Central Park, was home to numerous African American families, as well as some Irish and German immigrants. It had several notable institutions, including churches and cemeteries, which were integral to the community's social and cultural life. Here's a detailed overview of the data available regarding the cemeteries and families who lived in Seneca Village. Cemeteries in Seneca Village. 1. All Angels Church Cemetery location. All Angels Church was an Episcopal church that served the residents of Seneca Village. Its cemetery was used for burials of community members. Significance. The cemetery provided a final resting place for many of the village's residents and was an important part of the community's religious life. 2. African Union Methodist Church Cemetery. Location. The African Union Methodist Church, established in Seneca Village, had its own cemetery. Significance. This cemetery was a crucial aspect of the African American community's spiritual and cultural identity. Families of Seneca Village. Seneca Village was home to several families who contributed to its development and cultural richness. Some of the notable families and residents included: 1. The Lyons family. Members: Andrew Williams, a bootblack, was one of the first African-American property owners in Seneca Village, purchasing 3 lots in 1825. Significance: the Lyons family was among the first to invest in the village, helping establish a stable and prosperous community. 2. The Brown family. Members: Albro Lyons and Mary Joseph Lyons were prominent members of the village. Albro was an abolitionist and involved in the Underground Railroad. The Browns were deeply involved in the fight against slavery and contributed significantly to the social and political life of the community. 3. The Wilson family. Members: James Hinson, an African-American laborer, purchased land in Seneca Village and was a significant property owner. Significance: the Wilson family exemplified the success that African Americans could achieve in New York City during this period. Archaeological and historical research. Recent archaeological excavations and historical research have uncovered valuable information about Seneca Village. 1. Excavations. Findings. Archaeologists have discovered foundations of homes, personal artifacts such as dishes, tools, and toys, which provide insight into daily life in Seneca Village. Significance. These findings have helped historians understand the living conditions, economic status, and cultural practices of the village's residents. 2. Historical records. Documents, census records, property deeds, and church records have been vital in reconstructing the history of Seneca Village. These documents provide names, occupations, and family connections of the residents. Publications. Books and articles have been written about Seneca Village, compiling data from various sources to present a comprehensive history of the community. Commemoration and education efforts to commemorate Seneca Village and educate the public about its history include: 1. Markers and signs in Central Park. Information. Signs and markers in Central Park now provide information about the location and history of Seneca Village, educating visitors about this important part of New York City's past. 2. Exhibits and events. Organizations. The New York Historical Society and other institutions have hosted exhibits and events to highlight the history of
what?
Seneca Village and honor its residents. 3.
I wonder how many people have, if there's any tours on Seneca Village online. Like, that's what I'm curious about. Is there a site there? Let me see something. Is there a historical tour of Seneca Village? Oh, did I not spell that right? Yeah. Here we go. Oh, I spelled there wrong. Daggone. Let me I'm gonna check also to see if there's any videos real quick. Otherwise, I'm gonna leave it here. But I'm just curious, if there's any tours, I wonder if anybody is out there that has been on one of these tours. This is, I believe it's in Central Park, right? That would be very interesting.
Yes, there are historical tours of Seneca Village available in Central Park. These tours are designed to educate the public about the history and significance of Seneca Village, a predominantly African-American community that existed from 1825 to 1857 before being displaced for the creation of Central Park. Here are some options and details about these tours. Central Park Conservancy Tours. The Central Park Conservancy, which manages and preserves Central Park, offers guided tours of Seneca Village. 1. Seneca Village Tour. Description. This tour explores the history, archaeology, and legacy of Seneca Village. Guides provide insights into the daily lives of the residents, their homes, churches, schools, and the displacement that occurred. Duration. Typically, the tours last about 90 minutes. Availability. Tours are usually available on a seasonal basis and can be booked through the Central Park Conservancy's website. Self-guided tours. For those who prefer exploring on their own, there are self-guided tour options. 1. Seneca Village Audio Guide. Description. The Central Park Conservancy offers an audio guide that visitors can download to their smartphones. This guide provides a narrated experience with historical information and context as visitors walk through the site of Seneca Village. Access. The audio guide is available on the Central Park Conservancy's website and through various app platforms. Educational programs and resources. In addition to tours, there are other educational resources available to.
All right, so that's interesting. So I'm gonna close out that. That would be an interesting tour, actually, to take myself. I would like to, but until I get a chance to do that, I'm gonna be out and peep this. I'll see you all later. Be good.
Seneca Village was a community that came into being in the 1820s. 3 African Americans approached John and Elizabeth Whitehead about buying property in this area, which then was very distant from the African American communities downtown. So a bootblack named Andrew Williams, a clerk named Epiphany Davis, and the AME Zion Church made the first purchases. And in 1824, this was still 2 years before the abolition of slavery in New York. The beautiful thing for me as an African American coming to this site is that we're looking at the same landscape that they looked at. As we move through the site, you can see some of the things that they really saw as special. You can stand on Summit Rock and get a glimpse of the Hudson River. You can look to the south and get a sense of the city that lies below Central Park, the rock outcroppings, the things that became the foundations for their church buildings and other buildings we can still look at today. I'm standing upon this rock, which was the foundation for the African Union Church, the first African-American church. It became the sort of central hub of the Seneca Village community. If you look at African-American gospel music and some of the songs, a lot of the biblical imagery talks about upon this rock, and the fact that the rock is this sort of solid foundation. And in the exhibition, they have a Congo cross from the Congo. And I think about the traditions that that church brought from Africa that stayed alive in this building. So from this spot, I can imagine the church windows open and that music drifting out.
Wait a second.
So from about the traditions that that church, and they have a Congo cross from the Congo. And I think about the traditions that that church brought from Africa that stayed alive in this building. So from this spot, I can imagine the church windows open and that music drifting out.
Now, what year was that? He said that was, what year was this?
And I think about the traditions that church brought from Africa that stayed alive in this building.
Okay, let me see here. Seneca Village, that's like, what year was that? That's in, here we go, 1825. Right. 1825, around then. So that's interesting. Okay.
So from this spot, I can imagine the church windows open and that music drifting out onto the community as they pass by. There's a costume in the show. And I just imagine maybe that costume navigating this area, going to church or leaving.
Oh, yo, y'all seeing this? This is interesting. Look at this costume. Somebody is really decked out here. Right? This shit is on fleek. Look at this. This is crazy.
The wallpaper, I feel, that surrounds
Let me just
navigating
go
by.
back.
There's a costume drifting out onto the community as they pass by.
Look at this. That's some drip right there. Look at this. Whoa.
There's a costume in the show. And I just imagine maybe that costume navigating this area, going to church or leaving. The wallpaper, I feel, that surrounds the structure in the exhibition is really marvelous in evoking the flora and the fauna of what was Central Park, and particularly the area around Tanner Spring. You can almost move an image from the wallpaper to the area of Tanner Spring. They're almost identical. So those are evocative elements that help me see the reality of what the community might have been like. And you realize that's all sort of an overlay of our imagination of the physical environment. It's very, very well done.
Yeah, I appreciate everybody. I'm out. Sorry about that. I'm gonna catch you guys later on. This towards today, later, if I can. But until then, peace out and enjoy your day. Good morning to everybody over there in the US, and catch up with everybody later on.
We going out just like that. Yeah.